It's my 4.1 ethical and legal issues in sport and exercise science research. The first thing we have here is the scenario that it's going to be linked to. So the scenario that I've chosen is a gymnastics teacher is teaching a young female gymnast how to complete a tumble. And this is a complicated move that requires a lot of assistance and may require some physical contact at times. And I'm just going to be using this scenario to link to the issues regarding ethical and legal considerations within sport and exercise science. For the considerations we've got here, ethical actually defined as the difference between what is morally right or wrong. And the considerations of this, linking to the scenario, be the physical contact with anyone who's underage. Because they're young gymnasts, most of them are going to be underage, and this um, is going to need to be considered, and the coach may need to be checked and make sure they know what they're doing, and if it's ethical they need to make sure they ask the participants if anything is acceptable, so tell them before they just grab onto them, tell them how it works, what's going to happen, and making sure that they're all comfortable in the situation. Again, if they're young females, um, this can be seen as more it can be seen as slightly more difficult to deal with than if they were young males, because they're females. There's a lot of issues within that, with ethics and legal issues as well. So that all coaches and teachers must be DBS checked to make sure that um, you know they're okay and that they can look after people who are underage, and they know what they're doing. And using physical contact without participant knowledge or consent. This can be something that could be taken to court. This may have a legal issue because legal is whether something is deemed as right or wrong by the law, so it is a matter of fact. It's not just what you think may be right. This is wrong, this is right. And so if they grab onto someone who's a young female without asking them or telling them before it happens, this is wrong. And sometimes it can be put down as sexual assault, but again, there's ins and outs of it, depends on how you look at it. And ensuring they give assistance while still remaining objective towards the athlete. So just making sure that they remain in the role of the coach and they don't become anything more than that. This just being that objective just helps put up that barrier and helps protect the coach as well as the participants. And linking to ethics, we've got Nuremberg and Helsinki here. They both created these sort of laws and things about ethics in experiments. Nuremberg had 10 different things, and it was linked to the Nazi Germany in 1937. And he created these 10 sort of rules and steps in experimentation and research, and those were brought about in 1945. They both contributed to laws that were in place for participants during research or experiments, as I just said. And voluntary consent as well. This is one thing that they had that's very key, is voluntary consent of all participants, that they know what they're agreeing to, that voluntary consent is highly, highly important. It's very necessary for everyone. Also, the right to withdraw at any point throughout. This is another thing that's another major one of theirs that they've. These are the two main ones that these two have brought about. The right to withdraw is just making sure that all participants know that they don't have to finish the test. They don't have to be forced. Yes, there can be persuasions, but actually they should be allowed and they should feel comfortable to say that they don't want to continue any further, even if it's right at the last minute, just before, after they've got all the data and they're going to publish it. They still have that right to withdraw at any point because they are volunteering to be there. Some of them may get paid, but really it's on their own terms. They've agreed to it. They've said yes, they're doing the researchers a favour, so they should have the choice as to whether or not they want to be involved anymore. And we've got the BASIS here, the Code of Conduct. BASIS is British Association for Sport and Exercise Sciences. It's an association to help protect the participants and the researchers as well. Most of them are just for the participants, but this one actually helps protect the researchers, not just the participants. because the researchers need that legal aid to help them just in case something does go wrong and legal action is taken. They can use this, and this will help protect them to show that they haven't done anything wrong and they just don't get all the blame for it. It aids in outlining ethical and legal issues that may come about during research. So it also helps outline them to the participants and the researchers so that they both know where the boundaries are, where they lie, what they can and can't do, and this just helps them remain objective and help them, if legal issues come about, they know, the courts will know that the researchers know what's wrong and what's right, and so there's no confusion there. It just helps them to make sure that everything's safe between everyone. And then moving on to ethical clearance here. So we've got ethical clearance application. So what would have to be on something that they may bring to an association, just to make sure that their research is ethical and it's fine. So the purpose of the study, all participants must know what the purpose of the study is, how the participants will be able to withdraw, so the means that they can do that, and that they need to know that they can actually withdraw, and this needs to be made vitally clear. The place that the research will commence, so just so they know what will happen before it actually happens, and the ways in which you inform the participants of the procedures and the possible risks of the procedures. So anything that you may do, if it's taking a blood sample, or if we're going back to the scenario here of the gymnasts, so with a lot of physical contact whilst teaching a tumble, you will need to have physical contact, and that's not really a procedure, I'd say, but it's something that happens, and you need to let them know what's happening before they happen and risks of them doing that. Just let them know that if they fall funny, they may injure themselves, and that's the same with any experiment or, again, session, if we're linking it back to the scenario. Everyone needs to know what happens before it happens and the risks that may come about from that happening. Confidentiality and anonymity is something that's very, very important in any research. This is linking more to research than it is the scenario in this sense. Confidentiality is so, so important, because if it's regarding information that it can be seen as embarrassing, so it could be something really personal about the participant, and this could be harmful to them if other people found out. And so confidentiality, so knowing that they will keep that to themselves and not share that information without the participant agreeing to it and giving consent to them sharing it. That's just something that's really important to protect the participants. And this is linked to anonymity, because many participants will give their answers if they are anonymous, and being anonymous sort of aids confidentiality because their information is protected, because there's no name to it, no one can link it back to them, and it also gives them a much better validity. So because if people are anonymous, they're more likely to tell the truth because no one will find out it's them. So again, there's more truth to it, hence the more validity there. And this leads us on to deception and the data protection, so confidentiality, making sure the data is protected. So data that researchers collect is under the Data Protection Act in 1998, meaning that all information is protected. They are not allowed to share it, they have to keep it locked away. They're not allowed to share with anyone other than the people that are involved in the experiment and other researchers within the experiment or whatever's going on. And the information must only ever be used if it's necessary for the research. So if they have something that they don't need, they have to get rid of it. They don't need that. They're not allowed to hold on to information that isn't necessary. A lot of people think that like deception is a part of that as well. Deception is defined as the intentional withholding of information or presentation of deliberately misleading information to a participant. So sort of giving questions to draw answers out of them that they wouldn't usually answer, or just telling them, not identifying risks or something. That's deception, telling them something will be fine and that they have to keep doing it. Deception, it's a little bit of a grey area, just because deception has two separate branches, which is omission, which is passive deception, and commission, which is being actively misled. So omission can be a little more held back. So just telling someone it's a placebo, if you're using a placebo instead of the actual drug or something like that, that can be omission. But again, it's part of the experiment, so this is why deception can be a little bit funny in certain areas. And commission is just telling them that it's, if there's a procedure and it might cause discomfort, and telling them it'll be absolutely fine, that is commission, because they're being actively misled and not being told the full truth. And this can bring about a lot of health and safety issues. Health and safety is just important for everyone, just knowing that the place that they're going to be um, carrying out the research in is going to be fine, it's going to be safe, and this, making sure this is done through risk assessments. Um, just making sure that all the equipment, all the facilities, any possible risks from certain procedures that are all identified, and making sure that there are actions in place that the researchers will have to go through just in case something does go wrong. And then just making sure that if it's, the session, like if we're linking it back to the scenario, if it's the session, just making sure that everyone's dressed appropriately, they've got the correct, shoes, they've got the correct sportswear, making sure that the ground is safe for them to complete it on, making sure they've got the right mats to do it so no one injures themselves. That's why health and safety is one of the major ones here, and this is the last one here, um, just to make sure that everything is fine and there is no legal issues with that, and therefore no ethical issues, because they know that what they've done with the risk assessment makes sure it's safe and it's okay for everyone to use.